Hey everyone, my name is Sean Cecil from the Oculus Institute, and today I'm going to teach you how to manage your finances as you make the journey to career purpose. Okay, so many people, I always talk about, you want to build this career that really fulfills you. Many people, their first thought, they just go, oh, but what about money? Right? Like it's hardwired into the societal conditioning. And the truth is, yes, you want to make sure that obviously you can make money. So I wanted to help people kind of look at the world the way I look at the world when it comes to managing your finances and the different buckets that you want to make sure are fulfilled so that you can actually get to a career that brings you, happiness and fulfillment without totally screwing your finances along the way. Because if you do it right, you can actually make your finances significantly better and not significantly worse. But if you go about it in, a chaotic, disorganized, or poorly planned out way, that's how you end up getting into financial trouble. And there's all these warning stories and all this kind of stuff out there. And I want to spare you guys from having to walk down that path. So let's start with the basic framework. I see three different kinds of income, right? The first kind is what one of my mentors calls bread and butter, right? And this is, what do you need to maintain your current lifestyle? It needs to be reliable, it needs to be predictable, it needs to be sufficient to pay your bills, right? And for most people, this is often a salary. If you can actually establish a pipeline of clients as a freelancer entrepreneur, it can become your bread and butter. It can come from investments if you own rental properties or whatever, right? But this is something where you know that you can go do this and you will have enough money to pay your bills. Most people don't ever venture beyond that. They cover their bread and butter and they say, that's it, I'm not gonna do anything else. And anything else is gonna risk my bread and butter. And obviously you don't wanna get trapped there. On the other hand, it is very valuable because if you don't have your bread and butter covered, then you can go into a very poor psychological state. You can go into a scarcity mentality and a place of fear, and that will inhibit you from doing any of the other things that I recommend that you do. I'll be honest, when I first started my company, I did not take care of the bread and butter. I ended up $90,000 in debt. It was very stressful. I did, work my way out of that. I did obviously, succeed in making the business work, or I wouldn't be here talking to you today. And I have no debt today, and that's all wonderful. I've got, money in the bank, that's fine. But that journey was difficult for me. And I found that I'm actually an anomaly, right? In that I was able to push through it and figure it out. Most people end up just going back to some job because they've got to get their bread and butter covered. So you don't want to put yourself through that stress and that hell if you don't have to. The second category that I advocate people have is what I call moonshot income. So moonshot income is something that has a relatively low probability of working, but the main distinguisher of moonshot income is that if it works, it's highly valuable. It's a life-changing amount of either upfront wealth or of income. A lot of people avoid anything that could potentially be moonshot income because a lot of people out there peddling scams promote it as that kind of thing. But not all moonshot income is in fact a scam. There are real things. You can go invest in a startup. You can go invest in something that actually really does have potential. You can develop a skill that has the ability to be highly scalable, right? So, for example, if you get good at digital marketing and you have a digital marketing agency, the amount of actual effort that's put in compared to the amount of money generated, it's not exactly passive income, but it is something where you can scale, where you don't have to put in more time to make more money. Especially if you have a couple successful clients and you're charging them as a % of ad spend, then your income just keeps growing without you having to do anything other than make sure that their ads are working. And I don't want to diminish that because it actually is, as clients get bigger and bigger, it does require more effort because they cap out on certain audiences. But the point is that it's a life-changing amount of money if you build that skill, right? So you could count that as moonshot income. Now, this is something that most people have a lot of challenges with because they fall into one of two camps, right? One camp is delusionally optimistic, and they don't have a realistic assessment of how probable the moonshot income is and how much they're going to make. They think it's going to be so much bigger than it is, and it's so much easier than it is, and so they end up, pursuing things that cost them more time and money than makes sense for that probability of generating that amount of income. So you don't want to be delusionally optimistic. The other camp of people are people who are too pessimistic. And they always assume, well, what if this happens and what if that happens? And so they think the probability of success is much lower than it actually is. And they don't allow themselves to really get in touch with the potential return that it could provide. And there are very few people who don't fall into one of these two camps. So what I would recommend is figure out which camp you're in, right? And if you're delusionally optimistic, tamp your expectations down. If you're delusionally pessimistic, ramp them up. And a good way to do this is to go find a friend or family member who's the opposite of you and then talk to them about the idea and say, what do you think? What's the probability? What's the potential income? And if you know they're the opposite, then you can find out the number is going to be somewhere in between the middle of you two. That's a really good way to evaluate what kinds of moonshot income it makes sense to pursue and which ones it doesn't. And then finally, the third kind of income that I advocate is purpose-based income. So this is something where you would enjoy it if you weren't getting paid for it. But you can also get paid for it enough to, provide a substantial amount of income, right? And the reason this is so valuable, this is literally worth millions of dollars, because if you can get paid to do something you love, then you never have to retire, right? Retiring is just doing this thing that you're getting paid for that you love anyway, right? That you would be doing in retirement anyway and making money from it. And, considering that, the average professional in America, if they're doing proper financial planning, needs a couple $1 million if they want to retire for 20 or 30 years, right? Being able to have purpose-based income means that you don't have to have this huge pot of savings that you draw down. You don't need 10 years worth of income because you're going to be getting that income anyway, right? So finding this and getting it to the point where it's sufficient is literally worth millions and millions of dollars. So we have the bread and butter, we have the moonshot income, and we have the purpose-based income. Now, if you get the moonshot income, you don't have to worry about money again, or it will become a very, very, very different kind of money concern. If you get the purpose-based income, then you don't have to worry about money again because you can just do that happily for the rest of your life, right? So the purpose-based income can become your bread and butter, right? A lot of people think that their purpose-based income is their moonshot income. They think, I'm going to start a company and make it big. And in reality, that's actually not the best way to do it. I found that more often than not, the purpose-based income is actually that more stable, reliable type than it is that, hey, if it hits, it's a big kind of thing. So I would actually recommend that, so let's say you're starting, you've got your bread and butter covered. If you don't have your bread and butter covered, then get your bread and butter covered, right? So let's say you're starting, you've got your bread and butter, you want to start building up this purpose-based income and start from building it from 0 to say 10% of your bread and butter. And then once you got to 10%, you're going to go through a phase where you have to work a little bit harder because you're doing it in addition to your job and get it up to, somewhere between 20 and 50%. And if you're doing it 20 to 50% of your actual salary and you're working on it 20 hours a week or 10 hours a week or whatever, then just extrapolate it. If I were to extrapolate this to working full time, right, and take the number of hours that you're spending on your full-time job, right? So if you're working 40 hours a week and you're working 10 hours a week on your purpose and you're making 25% of your income, then if you go from 10 hours a week to 40 hours a week, that's 4 times 25, that's 100%. You can now replace your income. So now your purpose becomes your bread and butter. You can get rid of the old bread and butter because you have one thing doing both. And then I would encourage, even in that case, keep some moonshots on the side because human beings, we prosper when we have hope. We prosper when we have things we could look forward to. And if nothing else, it keeps your psychology in a constant state of growth, a constant state of development, and a constant state of creativity. And honestly, that's the thing is even if the moonshot never pays off, it's going to make you a better person. So, get your bread and butter covered, get your purpose discovered, work on making that purpose into something that can, fulfill your bread and butter. And if that purpose ends up being a moonshot too, well then great. You got the best of all worlds. But any situation where you have, the moonshot or the purpose is better than just going through life, just covering your bread and butter and having nothing else, which is sadly the only thing that most people ever do. So strive for more, guys. Those are the 3 types, bread and butter, moonshot, purpose, and aim for these. Before you go, I've got a free gift for you. So if you found this video valuable, if it helped you see the world in a new way, and you're interested in building a career that's going to bring you both personal fulfillment and financial prosperity, then I've got a free presentation for you to help you do just that. So if you go to the link below, it's www.oculusinstitute.com/workshop. That's www.oculusinstitute.com/workshop. Then it'll take you to a registration for a free presentation. It's about 50 minutes long, that's 50, and it's gonna give you the step-by-step process to building your dream career. See you there.